They told you hard work was the key to everything: success, respect, freedom. But what if that's the biggest myth you've ever believed? What if the grind isn't making you stronger? It's making you easier to control. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hustle culture that's been sold to you since childhood. This isn't about motivation. It's about manipulation. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because the real power? It was never in working harder. It was in knowing why you're working and who you're really working for. Let's begin. Part 1. Hard work as a tool of control. In America, we are raised on a promise. If you work hard, you can be anything. It's printed on classroom walls, stitched into graduation speeches, and whispered by parents doing double shifts to keep the lights on. But as we grow older, many of us begin to realize this isn't the whole truth. In fact, it may be the most elegant lie ever told to a working society. Carlos, an American of Mexican descent, worked in an Amazon warehouse outside Dallas for 11 straight years. Rain or shine, he showed up early. He never took a vacation, rarely called in sick, and volunteered for night shifts when others couldn't. He believed in the system. He thought that loyalty, sacrifice, and consistency would pay off, that he'd climb, slowly but surely, to something better. But the day Amazon introduced automation into their logistics centers, Carlos was let go with a sterile email. No farewell party, no acknowledgement of his sacrifice. Just a new system that didn't require humans like him anymore. This isn't just one man's tragedy. It's a symptom of a deeper design. What we call free market capitalism is often less about opportunity and more about obedience. The myth of meritocracy serves a purpose: to keep people striving within a system that rarely reciprocates. The more we glorify exhaustion, the less likely we are to question why we're exhausted in the first place. Some might say Carlos was unlucky, but what if he wasn't? What if his experience is exactly what the system was built to produce? Workers who give everything, expect little, and accept silence as their severance. The problem isn't hard work itself. It's what happens when hard work becomes a moral shield to hide exploitation. It convinces us that our pain is noble, that our suffering is sacred, and that our worth is directly tied to how much we endure. But here's the truth. Most people never say aloud. Virtue is not about how much you can tolerate. Virtue is about recognizing the trap wrapped in moral language and choosing to step around it. Because no matter how much sweat you give, if you're working in a system that only values your silence and submission, then your labor isn't a path to success. It's a leash. And the sooner you see that, the sooner you can begin building something that belongs to you. Part 2. The Inner Trap, when rest feels like a sin. Melissa is a freelance designer living in New York City, a place that never sleeps and silently shames you if you dare to. Every Sunday morning, she tries to take a break. No emails, no Figma files, no scrolling through client feedback. But without fail, around noon, a quiet panic sets in. Not because a deadline looms, not because anyone's calling, but because somewhere deep inside, it feels like she's doing something wrong. "It's like I'm stealing time," she confesses. "Like rest is something I have to sneak, not something I'm allowed." This is the trap most people never talk about. The internalized guilt of rest. You can quit your job, move to a cabin, throw your phone into a lake. And still, the ghost of productivity culture will follow you. It's not just in your calendar, it's in your nervous system, You've been taught that your value is tied to how much you produce, how constantly you hustle, how few breaks you take. So when you finally try to pause, you don't feel peace. You feel shame. The genius of this conditioning is that it no longer needs an external enforcer. The boss isn't hovering over your shoulder. The HR department isn't breathing down your neck. You've become your own supervisor, your own critic, your own punishment. You work because you're afraid not to. You chase results not because you love the process, but because you're terrified of being seen as lazy. Somewhere along the way, rest stopped being a right and became a privilege, one you feel you haven't earned. This isn't about laziness versus discipline. It's about liberation versus indoctrination. A free person knows when to act and when to pause. A conditioned person only knows how to keep moving, even when movement serves no purpose. Melissa's story isn't rare. It's the quiet epidemic of our time. Millions of people who don't know how to stop, even when no one's watching. Because stopping feels like failure, like falling behind, like disappearing. But here's the truth. Rest is not a reward for suffering. It's the soil where your power grows. If you cannot pause without guilt, you are not free. You are managed. And the first act of rebellion in a world obsessed with output is to rest without apology. Part 3. Power lies in strategy, not in hours worked. In the popular imagination, success is often linked to hustle, long nights, overflowing coffee cups, the noble grind. But if you step back and look at how real power functions in America, you'll see a different truth. The most powerful people in the system aren't the ones working the most hours. They're the ones designing the game itself. Think of Jeff Bezos. He doesn't pack boxes. He doesn't sprint through warehouses to hit productivity targets. He's not the one clocking in at 6 a.m. to unload trucks. Thousands of employees do that on his behalf. What Bezos does instead is think about systems, efficiency, leverage. He asks questions like, how can I make money while I sleep? And what bottlenecks can I eliminate at scale? And by doing so, he's not just playing the game of capitalism, he's reshaping the board entirely. This isn't about morality, it's about structure. There's no virtue in exhaustion if your labor only fuels someone else's empire. You could be the most honest, loyal, hard-working person on the floor, and still be expendable the moment a robot or algorithm does your job faster. It's not that effort doesn't matter. It's that effort without leverage becomes a trap. In many corporate environments, employees are celebrated for staying late, answering emails at midnight, never taking vacation. They're called dedicated. But what are they actually building? Usually, someone else's dream. And the irony is, the people who rise highest aren't always the hardest workers. They're the most strategic ones. They understand that time is a currency, and if you're spending all of yours without multiplying it, you're losing. It's not glamorous to say this, but we need to hear it. The modern economy doesn't reward effort. It rewards positioning. The person with the blueprint, the system, the ownership stake, that's the person who wins, not the one burning out on the front lines. So the real question isn't, how hard are you working? It's, who benefits most from your work? And unless the answer includes you, unless your work is building something you own, control, or shape, then your labor is fuel, not fire. The game isn't about how much you can endure. It's about whether you even realize you're in a game. Part 4. The Builder's Mindset. from employee to master of your own time. Tyrone grew up in the south side of Atlanta, in a neighborhood where opportunity felt more like a rumor than a reality. Against the odds, he earned a computer science degree, landed a six-figure job at a major tech firm, and lived the dream his younger self could only imagine. But after nearly a decade of 14-hour days, endless product launches, and staring into a screen that never stopped demanding more, something in him cracked, not from weakness, but from clarity. He realized he wasn't free. He was well paid, yes, respected, sure, but still tied to someone else's goals, someone else's deadlines, someone else's system. His time, his most limited and sacred resource, was not his own. Every vacation came with guilt, every weekend with unfinished projects. And for what? A slightly nicer apartment? A title change? So Tyrone did something radical. He walked away. He launched an online coding school for teens in underserved neighborhoods, starting with his own. It began small: Zoom classes, free laptops from local sponsors, a few curious students. But word spread. Within a year, his platform reached hundreds of kids across Georgia. He wasn't just teaching them JavaScript. He was handing them a new language of freedom. And here's the kicker. Tyrone worked less, earned more, and lived better. Not because he found a shortcut, but because he changed the question. He stopped asking, "How can I do more?" and started asking, "How can I create something that grows without draining me?" That's what true ownership looks like. When you build systems, whether it's a business, a brand, or a body of work, that can breathe without your constant input, you step into a different kind of power. It's not about abandoning effort. It's about investing effort where it creates multiplication, not just maintenance. Most people think success means working harder, but real success means designing better systems. You can either be the engine that drives someone else's machine or the architect of your own. Tyrone learned the truth too many discover too late. We weren't made to live just to work. We were meant to work as a way to live, freely, creatively, and on our own terms. Part 5. The Power of Silence. In the heart of Silicon Valley, where everyone seems to be sprinting, pitching, building, tweeting, and constantly proving, they whisper about a man named Ellis. He's not a CEO, not a media figure, and not the type to grace magazine covers. In fact, he only shows up to his own office twice a week, for just 1 hour each time. He doesn't attend panels. He doesn't answer Slack messages. He doesn't care for applause. But when Ellis speaks, companies pivot, startups redirect, founders listen. What makes his presence so powerful is precisely its rarity. He doesn't compete for attention. He doesn't fight to be seen. He builds in silence, and when he speaks, it carries the weight of someone who has spent more time observing than reacting. In a culture addicted to noise, silence is power. Most people confuse busyness with importance. They fill their days with motion. Meetings, updates, productivity hacks, hoping the frenzy will substitute for clarity. But Ellis understood something deeper. Strategy is born in stillness. It's in the quiet that you connect dots others miss. It's in the pause that real direction emerges. We often fear silence because it exposes us to our doubts, our directionlessness, our lack of plan. So we fill it. We reply to emails at midnight. We multitask ourselves into numbness. But power doesn't live in frantic movement. It lives in restraint. There's a reason chess masters don't rush their moves. A reason military generals spend more time studying terrain than shouting commands. Silence isn't absence, it's preparation. And in the world of influence, the quietest people often make the loudest moves. Ellis once told a founder, "If you need to be everywhere, it means your system doesn't work without you." That hit hard, because most of us are running on the fear of being irrelevant. But the truth is, relevance doesn't come from visibility. It comes from vision. In a world that equates presence with value, silence is misunderstood. But those who master it, who know when to speak, when to disappear, and when to act, wield a kind of power that can't be bought, taught, or rushed. Because while others are busy reacting, the strategist is watching the map unfold. Conclusion. At some point, you have to ask yourself, am I building something of my own, or am I just being used to build someone else's dream? It's easy to keep running, to stay busy, to chase the next raise, the next title, the next pat in the back. But busyness is not progress, and recognition is not freedom. The system will always reward your obedience more than your independence, because your labor is valuable only when it serves their structure. But if you pause, really pause, you might realize the game was never designed for you to win, not as a player, only as a piece. So instead of chasing validation, choose design. Instead of proving your worth through exhaustion, assert it through clarity. Create systems that reflect your values. Build in ways that don't burn you out. Take back your time, your focus, your direction. Because the truth is, no one's coming to liberate you. There is no savior, no final promotion, no perfect boss. Freedom isn't given. It's built. Deliberately, quietly, and on your own terms. And if you have the courage to step off the hamster wheel, you just might discover the blueprint to something that's finally yours. Thank you for watching till the end. See you in the next video.